Are you looking for a creamy and delicious rice pudding that's very low in bites, points, or calories? I think I have just the thing for you here. This is my creamy rice pudding. It is delicious, and I'll show you how to do it coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is going to be one of mine. It's one I've wanted to do for a while, and for some reason it got put to the back burner for a while, and then someone had mentioned it in a comment on one of my videos about making a rice pudding. So I thought I'd better get back onto that task, and I have come up with a delicious creamy rice pudding that I'm sure you're gonna love. Now I'm just gonna go over the ingredients really quickly. There are only, 9 ingredients. We have a 1.5 cups of almond milk here. And I have here 1/2 cup of fat-free half and half. And this is the one I use. I use Hood. For 1/4 cup, it's only 1 bite or Old Blue Point. I'm on the Healthi or iTrackBites, formerly iTrackBites Better Balance plan, which is the equivalent to the old WW Blue plan. So those are what I go by. You'll have to adjust for the personal points as they are, or also for whatever you happen to use. Now I also have here a 1/2 cup of arborio rice. Now it often comes in little containers like this, not usually in the bags like you find regular rice. You don't want to use long grain rice because it won't cook through enough, and you'll still have some of that hard texture on the interior of the rice. You want a short grain. It doesn't have to be arborio, just a short grain. You could probably get away with a medium grain rice, but I like the creaminess that you get from using arborio, but any small or medium grain rice should be fine. I have 1 egg here, and now the egg is not at room temperature, and I will explain why shortly. I have a 1/4 cup of sugar replacement, and I'm not using Swerve. Not because I've fallen out of love with it, but because someone had asked me about a certain sugar replacement that they've heard has no aftertaste. And that is this King Arthur Zero Aftertaste Baking Sugar Alternative. I tasted it right out of the package. Didn't have any sort of aftertaste. I'm not giving up on Swerve. Don't worry. I just wanted to try this, and now that I have it, I figured I would use it. So I have a 1/4 cup of that here. I have a pinch of salt. I have a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. You could add a little more if you really like cinnamon, but I think that's just the right amount. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And this part is optional. I have 2 tablespoons of dried currants, which are kind of like tiny, tiny little raisins. They're little currant berries that were dried, but they're much smaller than raisins. I am not a fan of raisins, and Paul wanted something extra in there, because the first time I made it without any extras, and it was fine, but he wanted a little extra in there. So if you add 2 tablespoons of dried currants, it won't alter the bites or points. At least as far as the old WW Blue plan. Again, I'm not sure with the personal points where currants would fall for you. But you could, if you preferred raisins, you could add raisins and just adjust for the bites. I think it would increase the bites or points. But again, just put everything into the recipe builder as you are using it, because if you're not using this, the fat-free half and half may be more. So just adjust it in the recipe builder as you are putting it in, and you will be fine. Now, let me just shuffle a few things around and we will get started. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is add our almond milk. Now I'm just using a small saucepan here. Doesn't have to be too big for this amount. If you wanted to double the recipe, just use a larger, and I'm hoping my arms are going to be steady for me here. Add in the half and half, and I'm just going to mix that together just a little bit. Usually I'll just throw them in the same container. I'll measure out the cup and a half of almond milk and then just fill it up to 2 cups with the half and half, so that I know that's the right amount. So those two are in. We're going to add in our rice and our pinch of salt. Then we're going to put this on over medium-high heat. You want to bring this up to a boil. You want it to just start boiling. And then we are going to partially cover this. Okay, while this is coming to a boil, I'm going to take the egg and I'm going to whisk it together with the sugar replacement, just so this is ready later. Now, the egg, as I said, is not at room temperature. The reason is because we're going to be tempering this egg, which means we're going to be adding some of this hot liquid in here to bring the egg closer to a good temperature to put into the rice pudding. If I started with a room temperature egg, in my mind, and this may be just my thinking, but I think the colder the egg as I'm adding this in, the less chance of it starting to cook the egg, because there's a bigger difference in temperature. If I had this at room temperature, the range would be more narrow, and I would think that the hot liquid would be more likely to cook the egg than if it's cold. So that's why I'm choosing to go with a cold egg. Could, you know, as I said, could be just my way of thinking, but seems pretty sound to me. So that's what I'm doing. So you just want to combine those two just a bit. These other 3 items over here, the cinnamon, the vanilla, and the currants, they won't go in until the end. This is going to not be needed right away either. But let me get this. You want to make sure you're scraping as it heats so that the rice isn't sitting on the bottom and then getting stuck to the pan, which can happen. So this is coming up to temperature. Once it does, I'll be right back to show you where we go from there. Okay, so we are starting to get bubbles here. It took about 4 or 5 minutes. Now, you want to make sure that you stir it often, like I said, just so nothing's getting stuck. Okay, so there we go. We're back to a boil already after just 1 stir. So now what we're going to do is partially cover it, put it on at an angle so there's steam that can vent out the front and the back, and put it down to low. Now it's going to cook for about 20 to 25 minutes, and you'll still have some liquid in there. It won't be like when you're cooking rice and you want it all to be absorbed. You will still have some liquid in there, and that's what you want. But I will show you what that looks like once we reach that point, and then we will move on. Okay, it has been a little over 20 minutes, probably about 22. And you can see there's still liquid in the pot here. You can see that the rice is much plumper than it was. That's exactly what you want, where you can kind of see the rice sitting on the surface of the liquid. All right, so from here, what we want to do is we're going to temper our eggs. So I'm going to add about 8 tablespoons. We want about a half a cup of the liquid in there just to get it to the correct temperature. But I'm going to do it a tablespoon at a time and whisk constantly as the hot liquid is going in so we don't end up cooking the eggs. And it's fine if some of the rice goes in there too. What you want to do, you're just bringing the eggs up to the temperature so we can then add them into the pot without them becoming scrambled eggs. Nobody wants scrambled eggs in their rice pudding. At least I don't think they do. 6. And I really should have put a wet towel down underneath this little bowl so it wouldn't keep sliding every time I whisked it. And I'm just using a little fork. I'm not getting too fancy about it. Okay, so that's 8. Now what we're going to do is add this back in and stir this constantly as we do, again, so we're not getting just scrambled eggs cooked in here. And that's what tempering is, where you bring those eggs up to the temperature that will closely match what it's going to go into so they don't suddenly cook. Get in there, a little piece of rice trying to stay behind. Not on my watch. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to let this cook for 5 to 10 minutes without the cover on it, because we want those eggs to start to solidify to form that creamy binder that a rice pudding is known for. So we're going to give this 5 to 10 minutes. I'll be back when it's ready to move on. Okay, so it has been about 10 minutes. You want to cook it and stir fairly often until it becomes thickened. Now it is not going to become thick like it will once it cools. You want some of this liquid in here, but you want it to be thicker, because as it cools, it's going to start to get more custard-like, and that's what you want. So you don't want it fully looking dry or set, because that's going to happen as it cools, and it's still going to absorb some of that liquid. So for the last step, we are going to add in our cinnamon, our vanilla, and if you're using them, your currants, raisins, whatever you feel like adding in. Stir that through, and I definitely get a big hit of that cinnamon once it hits that hot liquid. But you can see it's not fully set, and as I said, that's not what you want. You want it to have a little wiggle room as it cools. That's all mixed in there. And I'm going to turn this off because we're done with the cooking. Okay, so here I have some 4-ounce ramekins. You can put this in little cups, teacups, whatever you want. Each serving is going to be about a 1/2 cup. So I have my 1/2 cup measure here, and I'm just going to pour in the 1/2 cup. Usually on a ramekin like this, it comes up to the line. So I know I'll have to go back through, and hopefully my arms will remain steady for this process. Because for those of you who may not know, I have neuropathy and myopathy, so my muscles and nerves don't always want to cooperate with me. Okay, so switch over to my spatula and just add some more in here. Now you can eat rice pudding warm or cold. I'm one who prefers it cold, but I know some people do like it warm. Let me just, this one needs a bit more. So now I'm going to let these sit on the counter to cool down, because I'm going to wrap them in plastic and put them in the fridge. I don't want to put the plastic on while it's still hot, because then you get that condensation in there that drips onto the pudding. You don't have to, at least I haven't had to push the plastic wrap on top of the pudding. You can just if you want an insurance policy. Usually that's done to prevent a skin from forming. Like, you know, that thick layer on top of a pudding, if you've ever seen that, it's because there was air that let that dry out. So if you push the plastic wrap right on top of the pudding, that prevents that from happening. This, I don't need to do that, but you could if you feel more comfortable making sure no skin is going to form. So there you have it, my light and creamy rice pudding. Now, for the bites for this, the way I've made it, using the ingredients I made, just 3 bites a serving, which is great for a dessert. And that includes, as I said before, the currants. I added enough so that it wouldn't affect the bites or points. But I did calculate this for the calories and macros using the currants. If you don't use them, this will alter. But the way I've made it today, if you are following calories, the calories would be 126. And if you were following macros, the fat would be 2.1 grams. The carbs would be 37.1 grams. And the protein would be 3.5 grams. And that's for 1/2 cup of this rice pudding. Again, you can let them cool to room temperature and eat them that way, eat them warm. Paul and I prefer them cold with a little like fat-free whipped cream on top. Why not? So I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and if you did, I hope that you'll give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet and you are looking for recipes that can help you on a weight loss journey. And share these videos if you know anyone who is on a weight loss journey who might be interested in this content. Please feel free to share these. And hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. And also comment down below, are you a raisin fan? Do you enjoy currants? Have you never had a currant? Would you prefer nothing extra in your rice pudding? Let me know down in the comments. Now this recipe will be found on my blog, and the link to that is down below in the description box. Just under the name of my channel, under this video where it says show more, just click that and you'll see the whole description box open up. The blog is down there. There's links to my Amazon storefront, my Built Bars code, my Fetch Rewards code. Also down there you will find links to my social media. And here's my Instagram handle. And there are 2 Facebook groups that I am part of. One is my own, Recipes with Roy, and the other one is Finding Our Way, W-E-I-G-H. And that one I co-admin with Jennifer Lynn from the Jennifer Lynn channel, of course, as well as Bree Coleman from Balancing Life with Bree. So join us over there, lots of great tips, tricks, recipes, people, and support. So now comes the hard part. I have to wait for these to cool down, put them in the fridge, let them cool down even more, and finally, I will be able to have them in a few hours for my dessert. And I hope that you will be having it for dessert yourself sometime soon. So until next time, bye.